This is just a quick note to let you know that this vlog is from over a week ago, and it contains the second half of December, the final books that I read in 2023. Just didn't have space in my upload schedule to put it in sooner. Without further ado, let's go back to Past Jenny, opening up this vlog. Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In this video, you have the last vlog of 2023. You may notice a different background. I am currently at the beach, and it is currently Friday. So it is a late start to this vlog. I was gonna make it a 2-week vlog. It's gonna be just over a week now. Last week, Monday and Tuesday, or earlier this week I should say, finishing up school, did not read that much. I was working through House of Marion, which was the second to last book on my Goodreads list that I needed to finish, but I really wasn't into reading, and I just never felt like reading physically on Monday or Tuesday, so I didn't. I actually did not end up finishing House of Marion until yesterday. Wednesday was a day when I just relaxed as much as possible because I didn't have any school. Semester ended on Tuesday, and I did a lot of cross-stitching because I'm working on a project that I really want to finish fairly quickly. And I didn't actually read all that much. I listened to an audiobook, almost finished House of Marion, but not quite. And then did a lot of filming and editing. So that was my Wednesday. Thursday was the day to come down to the beach. Fairly uneventful ride, except for we hit traffic probably because of an accident where going 5 miles took us an hour. That was fun. But on that ride, I finished House of Marion and started Swordcatcher. So one book that I finished before, like the day that I wrapped up, edited, and posted my last vlog was Hijab Witch Blues, and that was the last of the memoir category. It's been enough separated that I don't have a lot of distinct thoughts about that. It wasn't my favorite out of the category, but I did enjoy my reading experience more than a few others. I'll leave it there for now. House of Marion. I updated it a little bit about at the halfway through point in the last vlog. It's fine, but on the negative side of fine. I liked the idea that JL was going for here with magic and the mystery, but it wasn't anything that hadn't already been done before. I also really was not a fan of how this whole magic thing was woven into society with the emphasis on these cotillion balls and proper etiquette and all that sort of things. It didn't seem to mesh with the seriousness of the magic, and the magic itself was talked about a lot less than all of the stuff with cotillion and power and etc. And the love story between the main character, Kel. By the way, I figured out her full name is Raquel, and so Kel is her nickname. Very interesting there. Not necessarily a fan of that, but the love interest, the story between her and Jordan, so predictable. And then the twist at the end, because there was another perspective that you kept getting, and at first I thought that that person was going to be the love interest, but they weren't. But then the connection to the love interest was revealed in the very last chapter, which set it up on a cliffhanger. Am I going to finish up with this series? Probably not. I would only if it made it onto the Goodreads Choice Awards for next year. But seeing as how it didn't even get 1,000 votes this year, I don't think it's going to be on the list next year, but you never know with Goodreads. So there's that one. Then I started Swordcatcher. I finally got the audiobook for this. I brought it with me to school on the very last day. Not very many students. I had pretty much finished everything, and I was going to start reading it physically. Grabbed my phone and saw a notification that finally I had gotten it. And I go to check it out, and I realize it's from my local library where my library card expired. I get that they want to verify that you live in the area before checking things out to you, but I would have thought that it was almost common sense in the fact that I have been picking up so many physical books from the library. Like, why would I live not in the county where I live? and pick up physical books from your library. And I've been doing it very recently. And the hoops that you have to jump through to verify your address, I'm just like, the library should be available to everyone, and especially those of limited income. And it's so difficult for them to be able to get these sorts of IDs and the address verification requirements. I'm just like, why are you making all of these hoops? Why can they not just get the card and be able to use it? It was mildly frustrating to me just because it was extra hoops to jump through, but I had the ability to do that. And that's a privilege for me. I had sent an email to verify the things I really wanted to get this audiobook. I didn't want to lose my hold on it after how long I had to wait. I called in and I could not verify over the phone. Like, nothing on your file has changed for me. Can you not just renew my account? It got renewed that day. So that's the saga of trying to get Swordcatcher. But I'm almost done with Swordcatcher now. Listened to it for most of the drive down from the beach. Like a lot of other people, I am pleasantly surprised. I've never disliked Cassandra Clare's writing, but this is very different than anything else I've read from her. I think this might be her first published work outside of the Shadowhunters world. I had to remember, I almost said Grishverse. That's a different author. The way that she has made the jump from the Shadowhunters world to this completely new epic fantasy world, I'm really enjoying it. It definitely reads a whole lot closer to epic fantasy than anything else she's ever written before. Pretty much anything I read in the young adult fantasy section. It's very well done, and it is not romance heavy. Like, there's romance there. There's some of the things there, but the things that have been her bread and butter are not necessarily there, and I'm really enjoying it. It was mildly annoying to go from a female main character named Kel, as in the second half of Raquel, to another main character, only this one is male, and his name is Kel. That was interesting there. Can we not think of other names, please? Oh well. So I'm going to hopefully finish that tomorrow. Maybe later today, maybe not. Not sure about that. And then physically, I would pick it up, but I have the dust cover off, so there's no sense in me picking it up. But I've started Defiant, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm back into it really quickly, even though it has been quite some time since I've read Cytonic, and I'm loving it, and I'm really excited for how Brandon Sanderson is going to finish this up. Okay, so I'll do an actual update in a little bit, but we are about to head over to Barnes & Noble. Unfortunately, their 50% off sale is not a 50% off sale this year. It's a 33% off sale. I'm still going, and I'm wearing my I have no shelf control shirt.
I've been out of my head, can't get out of bed. Too much on my brain, but got it good, can't complain. It's like I'm losing my mind, and time's hard to find. What's a girl gotta do to catch a break up? When life tries to test me, I take it one day at a time. Yesterday, but look at me today. It has been so long since I wrote a sad song. Sunshine on my face, I'm feeling okay. Nothing's in my way. I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. I put a dress on today, I don't care what you say. And I'm ignoring my phone, so don't try to reach me.
Okay, so it's a couple days later than my last update. Obviously, it's just after that B-roll that you saw. I don't remember where I left off. I think at the time that I last updated, I hadn't quite finished Swordcatcher. And so I'm gonna start here. This completely surprised me with how much I enjoyed it. Will I ever actually purchase these books? No, I do not want to monetarily support Cassandra Clare for reasons. However, this was phenomenal. And I just realized as I'm sitting here that I did not bring anything to charge my battery with. So if the battery dies, the battery dies. It's been a while since I finished this up, but I think that this book successfully bridged that gap of being a setup book that's interesting, because several of the main conflicts didn't actually end by the end of this book. And I thought she did a really good job. I will definitely be continuing in this series. I'll just be checking them out from the library. I finished that via audiobook, and I'm pretty sure I finished that while on my long run on Saturday after the race. And physically, the first book that I finished is Defiant by Brandon Sanderson. And in the end, everything, all of those pieces came together really well. Some of the details I had not remembered from Cytonic. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about a lot of the details because this is book 4 in a 4-book series with 3 novellas that I've also read. And it reminds me that I read the novellas and Cytonic last summer, not this past summer, but the summer before. So it's been a while since I've read these, but I still remembered a lot of the details, even though it took a little bit getting into it. Sanderson eases you into it, and some of the details, even if you don't necessarily remember them, they come clear in the way that he unfolds the narrative, which is really good. I will say, was it as enjoyable, as captivating of a reading experience as Skyward, as the first book in the series? No, but I think for everything that was revealed, unfolded, expanded in this world, Sanderson did a really good job with this. The next one that I read was really short, and this is one that was on my November TBR that I rolled over to December, and this is Emily Ratajkowski's My Body. I will say, it's not necessarily my favorite format. This is not a straightforward chronological memoir. And I knew from the start that it wasn't going to be, because she talks about in the author's note at the beginning that these are essays that she's written on various topics. And because of that, because I knew that they were compilations of essays, I expected that going into it. And she talked about a lot of different things as she went through this book. And I really appreciated that from her. Is it going to be one of my all-time favorite memoirs? No. But I really appreciated the work that she put in herself to everything that was going on, and how people were portraying her for her body, for objectifying her for her body, the way that different photographers made money off of photographs that they took of her without her, well, they had permission to take the photographs, but when it came to publishing, she gets into that in one of the essays. And this was just very thought-provoking, but a very short read. Next, we have another short read, which does actually help me finish a series, which is really cool, and that is Last Violent Call. I should have read this before Falheart Huntsman, which is the second book in that duology. I forget what the name of that one particularly is, but these are 2 stories that take place basically between the events of the 2 books, Foul Lady Fortune, Falheart Huntsman. And events from those 2 books, at least the first one, are referred to in there. And there are a couple Easter egg sorts of things in Falheart Huntsman that you could pick up having read this. Do you miss out not having read this before you read Falheart Huntsman? No, and I think that's how it should be for these sorts of novellas. There are 2 novellas in this very short book. I'm not going to talk about who the characters are that star in these novellas, because that would give away things from the other duology that I still need to read the second book in. Some of the ending parts of that have been ruined for me because now I have read the subsequent duology and these 2 stories. But I thought that both of them expanded on the characters that I first met in These Violent Delights, which is the very first book of this whole series, this whole world. It was a fun read. Is it something super special? Did I need to go out and buy the special edition? No, but I did, and I enjoy having it. So those are the books that I have finished. One physically, I'm in the middle of another one physically that I'll talk about in just a second, and 3 via audiobook. The audiobook that I am currently reading and about 50% through is Sanctuary by Paula Mendoza and Abby Sher. And I'm not 100% on what I think of this. This is supposed to be set in a near future dystopian America. And there are certain things in here that on first glance you might be like, that would never happen. But then you think about some of the other things that have happened and you think, well, maybe it would have happened. But I still stand by the idea that some of these things would not have happened. One of the biggest things for me is the idea of using identification chips being put into wrists, and that being supported by the ultra conservative people who are diehard fans of the previous administration. And the reason that I stand by the fact that that's a little bit stretching the suspension of disbelief a little bit too far, because when you think about the idea of the mark of the beast, which is in Revelation, a lot of people, there was talk originally when barcodes first came out that those were the mark of the beast. They're obviously not. But whenever it comes to implanting chips in something, that group of people react violently against. When you think about the vaccines and how many conspiracy theorists were like, I'm not going to get the COVID vaccine because they're going to implant a chip in me with that. So the idea that implanting chips, that's the way of identification and these people are going to go along with it, I don't think that would happen. And also I think the time frame is just a little bit too fast for some of the things that go completely against what America is supposed to stand for. I just think setting this in 2032 is just a little bit too tight on the timeline, which stretches the suspension of disbelief. I go back and forth on this, whether or not this is just not, see, I don't know. I'm unsure about this, and I don't think that this is going to be a book necessarily that I'm going to hold on to, but I don't necessarily think that it's a bad book either. I'll have to wait till the second half to figure that out. On the other hand, one that I'm most definitely sure is a very good book, is an amazing book, might have even made it on my top list had I not already made that and uploaded that, Sword of Kaigen. I should have known. I probably could have just immersed myself completely and read this book until I finished it, because I'm a little over halfway done with this. I don't know how ML Wong does this. Yesterday I was thinking about it because I knew I was going to update about it and I wanted to know how was I going to talk about it. I don't know what about this world is drawing me in so much. Part of me thinks this opened the gates to this sort of thing, and that makes me realize that there's probably a lot of background noise. Whatever machinery just went off. Maybe this opened the door to that sort of world. Maybe, maybe not. I spent hours utterly immersed in this story. It moves so fast. And even though having watched another booktuber read this book and give some spoilers and going ahead and reading that, even though I'm not necessarily spoiler averse, even knowing a big, massive spoiler for something that happens to one of the characters, I still, reading this, knowing what's going to happen, it's utterly captivating. The way that she has created this entire world and these different characters, it's not even intense character study. It's a fast-moving plot. The characters, when you look at it on the surface, they're not super in-depth. You don't have a lot of introspection and brooding in any of these characters, and yet you feel like you are there. It's not flowery writing, but the atmosphere, you are in this world, and I cannot wait to finish it. I'm so excited about this book. So now I'm going to briefly talk about my haul. I probably would have gotten more had I gone back home, because I think this is a smaller Barnes & Noble, and also everything was only $33 off. I will say though, there's one book in here, I'll go ahead and pull it out. Dark Star Burning, Ash Falls White. This is supposed to come out next week. And I saw that on there, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna pick it up. I'm gonna buy it. This is the sequel to Song of Silver, Flame Like Night. And when she was attempting to ring this up, it was not working for her. At one point it pulled up that it was a hardcover Bible. Yeah, no, that's not what this is. And so she goes and gets help, and the girl comes over and scans it and it works. You know, Murphy's Law. And I happened to mention that, you know, sometimes my students will be like that. Something will be functioning on their computer and I walk over and it works. Because I was just sharing that story. After she rings everything up, she was like, oh, I heard you say you're a current educator, right? And yes, and so apparently Barnes & Noble, because they got rid of the educator subscription, is giving a year of their premium subscription, which is like $40. So I went ahead and signed up for that and got even more of a discount. I'm like, I'm not gonna turn away a discount. Am I gonna renew it? Probably not, but I got several books. When I went online to verify what the type of sale was this morning, it is 33% off all hardcovers in store, plus like $20 of rewards credit for every certain amount that you spend. So I probably will be spending that money at some point. But they had some 50% off online. And so I spent a long time this morning going through several sections, picking out books that I was going to buy. And I also made sure that I knew which books I bought online, so I wouldn't do what I did last year and accidentally buy books that I bought online. I mean, I think I managed not to duplicate. So here's one of the books. Their middle grade section was so small and so disappointing. And for some reason, I keep looking for it, but the book that is Nico's story that was published, co-written with Marco Shiru, I can't find anywhere, and they didn't have it. They had multiple versions of several of Rick Riordan's books, but they didn't have that one, which is really annoying. Without further ado, here's the rest of what I got. I got The Swifts, A Dictionary of Scoundrels. I've heard really good things about it and I went ahead and purchased it. We have Free Water. This I think is going to be pretty hard hitting. I've heard good things about it. It was on one of Ashley from Bookish Realms anticipated reads, plus it's award winning. So I went ahead and got that. And even though I prefer the special edition covers of this series better than the American version, I want the sequel. There's still the ongoing strike of St. Martin's Press, and I believe this is still published by, still published by Wednesday Books, so I'm not even gonna show it. It's a sequel to that book that I absolutely loved, but I'm not gonna show it, and I didn't wanna wait, because Fairy Loot, I believe, is doing a special edition, but you're not gonna get it till like May. And I'm like, I can get this cheaper and read it now. So that's what I did. Then we have one that I have heard about, and I don't remember where I heard about it, but it is a nonfiction, and it is an Indigenous people's history of the United States. So I'm excited about this. This is seeming very familiar, so I'm wondering if maybe I've already read this. I'll have to check that out. But I'm still excited about owning it, even if I've already read it. And then we have the sequel. I like the Fairy Loot special edition covers better, but I could get this cheaper and now, so my covers aren't going to match. But it's This Cursed Light, which is the sequel to This Vicious Grace. One last book I mentioned because another book by this author was on my top 5 historical fiction, and I mentioned that she had a book coming up for release that I thought was next year, but I saw it there and so I bought it. And that's Artifice by Sharon Cameron. This is again quasi World War II history. So this is in Amsterdam, involves art. I'm really excited about this because Sharon Cameron can really write. I ended up with 7 books physically, which is not too shabby, and I got a free tote. I got it, you get black or gray. So I got it in gray. Do I need more totes? No, but it turns out that this is a fair trade product, and what is it called? It's Rewrap, a social enterprise, and it empowers rural Indian women to earn a living by handcrafting reusable textile products, and it's guaranteed fair trade. So I'm like, oh, well, cool. I'm glad that they're supporting that. I mean, they're giving it away, but at the same time, that's a cool thing to support. So I'm gonna get to reading now. It's a couple days later. I don't know how much battery I have left, so I'm going to update what I can. I have 4 more books that I have finished. It is now Thursday. Last time I updated was Tuesday, and I've read a lot, as you can see. I've been trying to focus on that. I haven't exactly gotten done what I plan on getting done, but that's okay. That's usually how these weeks go. Sword of Kaigen. I have finished this. And at certain points in this book, I thought, oh man, I should have waited to do my top 10 because this would have made it on there. I think that it didn't quite make what would be my top 10, but it definitely is gonna get 5 stars, almost for certain. I haven't done any of the compile or anything like that. The thing that kept me from wholeheartedly loving it and thinking that this is absolutely amazing, I want to do more, is towards the end. There are a few things that get brought in with a couple of the characters towards the end of this book that leave the door open for a possibility of more books in a series, but this is a standalone, and for all intents and purposes, it's going to forever be a standalone. I know that she has novellas or novels or something in this world. She refers to certain concepts that she doesn't talk about in detail in here, which I think she talks about more in those novellas, potentially, not sure. But this is just phenomenal, and I really struggle with coming up with words for how I feel about this, because were the characters particularly in depth? No. Did it have a ginormous, overarching, amazing plot? No. But it was true to life, and it shone a light on a lot of different aspects of relationships that just worked so well. The relationship between the main character and her husband, after a certain thing happens, after we're about 60-70% of the way through the book, something happens with their relationship and the way that they work through it, and things are not necessarily picture perfect afterwards. It's really cool. And I have not read another book like this. This is definitely the best book I've read while on vacation. Unfortunately, the next 2 books that I read were not so great. So next we have the next audiobook that I finished, and that is Sanctuary, co-written by Paula Mendoza and Abby Sher. I think, yes, I had started this when I last updated. So my reservations still hold true. In the author's note, both of them reveal that they purposefully tried to stretch, tried to go to the limit of what might be possible, and I can definitely see that in this book. I just think that the time frame that they put it in for when these certain things would happen, that stretched the suspension of disbelief just a little bit too much for me, and I couldn't shake it. Like it just prevented me from really latching on to this story and really getting into the narrative and feeling for the characters. So for that reason, this one and the next one, I'm probably not actually going to take home with me. There is a free little library along one of my running routes, and I'm not gonna carry it with me while I run, but I'm probably gonna stop by there and put this one and the next one in there. And this next one, it's really sad to me that this is the case. And I read this one yesterday, physically, all in one day. And that is one of the good ones, again, co-written. And in this one, the setup is you have the main character who is the youngest of 3 sisters. The oldest sister is several years older, and the middle sister is only 1 year older. And the middle sister is an activist. She has a YouTube channel, and tragically, before the story starts, it goes to a protest, is arrested, and dies. But you get some flashback chapters from her perspective. Like, she's the narrator in those chapters. Eventually, the older sister, the younger sister, the middle sister's girlfriend, and another family friend end up going on a road trip that the middle sister intended on going on. She was a high school senior about to graduate. The protest was on the day of her 18th birthday. And they're going along this road trip that follows through a lot of the different spots from, I forget the exact name, but it was a guidebook that was used by African Americans to try to travel safely across the country. And it was really moving and engaging, and I was really appreciating that sort of look at a lot of these real life circumstances, because I think these were written around the same time, and I almost really loved this. But then about 75-80% of the way through the book, something happens with one of the perspectives that turns it into a thriller. And I just went, wait a second, what's happening here? Why are we doing this? What is going on? I don't get what's going on. And it just was so jarring that all of the revelations and things that the other characters were coming and having, and as they go on this journey, just were like, wait a second, there's this danger, you need to be aware of this. And it just felt like two completely different stories, and it was really jarring and took me completely out of the story. And so for that reason, I can't rate this highly. And unfortunately, the battery is blinking. I don't have enough to talk about the second to last book that I finished. One of them was an e-arc that I'll have to talk about later, and the other is the Gilded Wolves, which is the last of my challenge lists. But I didn't bring anything to charge the battery, so the next time you see me, I will be at home. Okay, I am back home from the beach. Just filmed a video and forgot to take down my props. Not props, aka staging for my thumbnail. And I finished a few more books, but I'm gonna have to edit the video up until this point, including this clip, because I don't remember which ones I have talked about. I have only one of them physically right here with me. I think I read, that's right. I remember one of the other ones that I read physically, but it was a NetGalley arc, so I don't have it with me. So I'm actually gonna talk about that one first. And that is a middle grade book called Ruby Lost and Found. And I really enjoyed this one. So in this book, you have Ruby, the main character. She's going through a lot of changes in her life. A year and a half ago, her best friend moved across the country to New York. I think she lives in San Francisco. Her parents are starting a business and are all involved in that. She still has a friend there, but the friend that moved was sort of like the glue in their friendship group. She used to spend a lot of time with her grandfather, but her grandfather passed away at the beginning of that school year, and the school year has just finished. She got in trouble at school for skipping out on lunch because she didn't want to sit alone, and now she has to spend time with her grandma, and there's things going on with her grandma, and she's working through a lot. Oh, and her older sister has just graduated from high school, got into Carnegie Mellon, is like the one that everybody looks to as the perfect daughter. So there's a lot going on in this book, and I just thought it was very well handled. She wasn't a perfect character. She wasn't an extremely unlikable character either. I thought it was an excellent coming of age sort of story told at an appropriate level. She makes a lot of mistakes, but she also learns a lot. And I did also get frustrated on her behalf with how at certain points her parents blamed her. Like, her grandmother has dementia. The whole family is just now discovering this. And something happens where she's trying to get her grandmother back to the house and ends up losing her somehow. They find her, but her family is frantic, and her parents start blaming her, and she completely breaks down because she's like, I was trying to get her home all day and you guys aren't helping and you're blaming me. And it was really enlightening, and I thought they did a really good job. The author did a really good job with it. I really enjoyed it. Speaking of another book that I thought the author did a really good job is, this actually was on the Goodreads Choice Awards for both debut, I think, and for sure historical fiction. I loved this book. I started it yesterday, I believe, and finished it on the ride home from the beach today, and this is just fantastic. It explores an aspect of history that I don't know very well. A lot of people, when they think about slavery, they think of just the American South. Like, my students are very surprised when I tell them that the vast majority of Africans ripped from their homelands did not go to North America. Most of them went to Brazil and the Caribbean. This is the story of one of those women who, I forget what the island, Barbados. She was born and raised on Barbados, and there's a point where England eliminates the slave trade and eliminates slavery in all of their colonies. This is before the US does this. But they keep the system, and it's transformed into apprenticeships where they have to serve for 6 years and they can't leave, and the punishments are basically the same. But she takes this opportunity to flee, to leave, to run away. And this book is her journey in trying to find her children. Because like for a lot of women, all of her children were ripped away from her in some form or fashion. And she embarks on this incredible journey on the island of Barbados itself, going to British Guyana, so on the mainland of South America, going back to Trinidad to try to find her children. And the author is British, but has Caribbean ancestry. So there were a lot of people. I think there was a time period in the devolution of the British Empire in the 1900s where there was a huge wave of immigration from the West Indies, from the Caribbean, from those former British colonies to the UK. And she's one of those people, and she went back and was tracing her history. And I think that at least one family member was relating a story of a woman named Rachel, who was one of their ancestors, who did this, who tracked down her child, who was another one of the ancestors of this family member. And this was just very impactful, very hard-hitting. It tells a story that not a lot of people know. And I really enjoyed this. It might be one of my favorites that I read the whole time at the beach. Actually, Sword of Kaigan, and then this one. And then the one that I am probably going to finish up tomorrow, it might be one of my last reads of the year, which is kind of ironic. I don't have it with me, but I do have a physical copy, so I'll probably hold that up later. And that is Assistant to the Villain. And I've heard a range of things about this. But one of the things that has helped me, because I'm actually enjoying it, is I think it was Katie from Katie Coulson said, don't go into this expecting great literature. Go into it expecting a campy good time. And I went into it expecting camp and ridiculousness, and that's what I'm getting, and I love it. It is hilarious. I'm really enjoying this. It's not stunning literature, but it's also not bad in the way that Fourth Wing was. I don't know how everything is going to wrap up. It feels like we had a third act breakup already, even though they're not actually together. I guess a third act conflict, but we're not in the third act yet. So who knows what's coming with the rest of this book, but it's really surprising me that I'm actually liking it, and it was a little bit wary before going into it. So we'll see how that wraps up. When it comes to the end of the week, I'm not going to be able to hold up all of the books that I read this week because I left 2 of them in a little free library on the island before we came back, and that was Sanctuary and One of the Good Ones. I've already talked at length, but it was really funny. When I put those in, I looked briefly at the other books that were in that little free library, and I'm like, even though I didn't like these and I'm getting rid of them, I'm glad to be putting good literature into this box. All the other books in there, very interesting. So now I'm going to go clean up the mess around here and do something else. I'm not sure what. Okay, so I'm wrapping up the vlog now with my thoughts on Assistant to the Villain, which was the last book that I read in 2023. This wasn't a bad book to end on. Was it the most amazing book ever? No. I don't actually hold a lot of store by, I want to start with a really good book, or I want to end with a really good book. I just wanted to make sure to finish this and not carry it over between the years, even though it really doesn't matter. When I updated at about the 50% mark or so, I was enjoying it. That's because I went into it thinking, yes, it's going to be camp, it's going to be ridiculous. And I still enjoyed it. A feel-good read. Did it do anything extraordinary? Did it make me laugh a lot? No. Did I have some moments of laughter? Did I have some moments of like positive enjoyment? Yes. But as we get towards the end of the book, when the plot actually starts getting going, it's almost like the plot starts taking itself seriously in the last 20% or so of the book. And then the reveal of who the traitor or whatever was, I was like, oh, okay. And then I did not realize that this is set up to be a series. I can't do more than one book like this. I can't do a series of this. I don't think it has enough material to make for a series, so I will not be continuing in the series. But for what it is, I did enjoy this book. I didn't think it was terrible. I didn't think it was amazing. It was a decent read, and I probably will be keeping it in my collection. It's probably going to end up being a low 4 stars if we get through Compile and it's a 3.5 stars. Will I unhaul it? Probably. Every book on my shelves is 4 stars or above. This was not a terrible way to end the year. Unfortunately, I don't actually have all of the books that I read in the past couple weeks because I have been putting things away and sorting out my library. It looks nice and neat right now, although I do have a stack of books here for another video that I need to film. But after that, everything's going to be put away and we'll be able to start off 2024 with a magnificent looking library, in my opinion. So there you go. This was the last book that I read in 2023. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.